From today, my parents will be living with us. Just so you know, you better not oppose me, all right? A wife is supposed to listen to what her husband says. If you got a problem with it, you can leave.
I had just moved into the home of my dreams, and life was supposed to be rosy from here on out. However, Steve was standing next to my mother-in-law Charlotte, grinning and with his arms crossed.
Starting from today, I'll be depending on you, Mary. Wow, what a lovely home. A 5-bedroom house. Steve really outdid himself. I bet the neighbors are impressed. A husband like him is too good for someone like you, Mary, who's plain and useless.
I couldn't help but feel nauseous hearing Charlotte sweet-talk Steve. The two of them were acting like it was perfectly natural to move in together, but they didn't consult me beforehand. That really showed where I stood in this house.
Dad will be here tomorrow for some reason, so today you need to help Mom out, okay?
Steve, you're such a considerate guy. Mary for dinner, I'd like steak, with appetizers and soup. Don't forget dessert, okay? Of course, you're going to make everything from scratch. Don't even think about serving me cold, pre-made stuff.
Watching the two of them act so smugly, I couldn't help but notice how much more confident they got when my father-in-law, Daniel, wasn't around. Daniel is old-fashioned, so both of them had been trained to respect him as the head of the house. Seeing them taking advantage while the big boss was away, I immediately snapped back.
All right, that's it. I'm done being your wife. I'm leaving since all you two guys ever do is complain.
Huh?
They both blurted out in unison. That's a mother and son. They really are in sync, aren't they? For a second, they were both taken aback, but they quickly started laughing loudly.
Hey, normally you just nod quietly, but today you've got a sharp comeback. You actually thought this through, huh? That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm surprised Mary has the talent to make us laugh. I guess if you act rebellious every now and then, I'll let it slide. But if you go too far, I'll double down on you.
I couldn't help but smile faintly as I watched Steve and Charlotte keep their high and mighty attitude. Their smiles won't last long. Reality will come crashing down soon enough. My quiet wife act ends today. From here on, please enjoy the wife who fights back.
I'm glad you two guys liked it. Honestly, I was a bit worried. I thought you might get really angry, like fire and brimstone. But now, I can continue talking without worry.
With that, I spread out a few papers on the table. I was ready to file an application with the court for divorce. The smiles disappeared from their faces.
I will submit the application to the court and you must respond when you hear from the court.
Are you serious? You've got the application ready?
You've gone a bit far with this joke, haven't you?
I'm serious.
When I answered calmly, they awkwardly chuckled in response.
Hey, you should know when to stop laughing or it'll backfire.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't drag something on that you can't actually follow through with.
Yeah, Mom's right. That's why a barren and useless wife like you is so dumb. You're good for nothing.
Steve's right. A woman isn't truly a wife until she has kids. Mary, you're not even half a woman yet. Maybe you haven't even evolved into a human.
Steve and Charlotte snickered, glancing sideways at me. As I had suspected it for a while, it seems these people are lacking basic human decency, regardless of any issues with them, including their bullying me.
It's expected that the wife has children, but that's such an outdated way of thinking.
Well, of course you blame us because you don't want to admit your own shortcomings. How twisted. You can't even fulfill your role as a wife, and yet you rely entirely on Steve. What a selfish woman you are. A wife with nothing going for her should just leave.
Charlotte threw a box of tissues at me. It didn't fly well because it was almost empty, but even a tissue box could hurt if the corners hit me. I glared at her a bit more sharply.
I'm leaving, whether you tell me to or not. I don't want to be involved with people who do such barbaric things anymore. But before I go, I'll be charging you $220,000. Please pay up.
At those words, Charlotte immediately responded in a high-pitched voice.
Why should I have to pay you such a huge amount? In fact, I'd like compensation for the trouble you've caused me. A useless wife like you is so stupid.
I gave her a sweet smile, despite how she was acting all self-important. Then I took out a piece of paper from a file where I had kept it carefully and held it up in front of her.
What's this? A loan document. $200,000. $200,000, you say?
Charlotte tried to snatch it quickly, so I pulled it back in a hurry. Since it was an important document, I wanted her to handle it more respectfully.
What on earth is this? When did you get him to sign something like this? Did you drug him or something to make him sign it?
Charlotte, please calm down. You're imagining things way too much. This $200,000 is money I lent to Steve because he asked for a loan to start a business. I didn't force him to borrow it.
But to create such an official document, you must be joking.
$200,000 is big money. If you don't properly document loans, it can lead to trouble. This is a loan agreement I made after consulting with a lawyer. And yet, Steve didn't use the money to start a business. Instead, he spent it on buying a new house without telling me. So now I want it back.
Charlotte asked me to hand it to her properly, so I gave her the loan document while keeping it in the file. She examined it carefully, mumbling,
It really is $200,000.
Still skeptical, she turned to Steve.
Steve, this can't be true, right? I can't believe you really borrowed $200,000 from Mary.
Charlotte looked at him as if hoping he would deny it. She probably couldn't believe that someone like me, who depended on her son's income, could ever lend such a huge amount of money. However, Steve had no intention of backing her up.
Right, I signed it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, Mary wouldn't lend it to me without it, so I had no choice but to sign it.
That easily? It's not like it was just $200.
Despite her panic, Steve seemed totally calm. In fact, he was smiling and patting Charlotte on the shoulder, trying to comfort her.
Don't worry, Mom. There's no reason to stress. I've got a plan for paying it back. Mary, I borrowed exactly $200,000, right? Are you going to charge an extra $20,000?
Steve smirked at me, poking fun.
Well, you're right. The money you borrowed from me was $200,000. Now, let's have someone else explain why there's an extra $20,000.
I took out my phone and made a call to someone. As I pressed the call button, I heard the electronic chime of a phone ringing from inside the new house. As Steve and Charlotte looked around frantically, they heard the sound of footsteps coming from the stairs. It led them both to tense up. It was only natural. They had just stepped into this new house to begin their new life. Despite that, there was the unmistakable presence of a third party inside. Seeing the looks on their faces, frozen like characters in a horror movie, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. I decided it was time to reveal the truth.
Daniel, please come out.
Oh, I was going to let them be a little more scared, but I guess that'll have to wait. My father-in-law, Daniel, appeared with a playful tone, and both Steve and Charlotte were completely stunned.
Dad, What are you doing in here?
Daniel, you were supposed to come tomorrow, right?
They shot off their reasonable questions, but Daniel just smiled, pulled out a piece of paper, and handed it to them.
Take a look at this. We'll talk later.
What's this? You suddenly show up, and now it's another piece of paper.
$20,000. Demand for alimony. A demand for alimony?
Charlotte tried to snatch the papers again, but she was shoved aside by Daniel.
Hey, stop being so mean and just hand it over. This demand for alimony must be a mistake.
Yeah, right. Not only do we have to pay back $200,000, but now you want me to pay an extra $20,000 too. It must be fake.
Fake, huh? Steve, look me in the eyes and tell me. You don't remember owing any demand for alimony, do you?
Of course not. I'm your son, believe me.
After hearing Steve's reply, Daniel slumped his shoulders and looked utterly defeated. He turned his gaze to me, nodding weakly. How foolish can Steve be? This was Daniel's last attempt at kindness, yet Steve dismissed it. I glared at Steve with disdain.
Then let me explain. That $20,000 is the demand for alimony due to your affair.
The room fell deathly silent. No one even blinked as the clock continued ticking. It was Charlotte who spoke first.
Steve, were you having an affair?
That question brought Steve back to his senses.
It's a misunderstanding, Mom.
But look, without any proof, without even discussing whether it's true, they're already demanding alimony.
They're just saying whatever they want to get money.
Someone who can afford to lend $200,000.
Steve's face turned flushed as he yelled, clearly flustered. The confident look he had earlier was nowhere to be seen. He kept wiping the sweat off his forehead. I couldn't suppress the slight tremble in my shoulders, but managed to clear my throat to hide it.
It's useless trying to explain your way out of this. I've already consulted with a lawyer. The same lawyer who helped with the loan agreement also specializes in affair and divorce cases.
See, I knew it.
Mom, shut up for a second. Mary, this is some kind of joke, right? I know you're good at coming up with these elaborate setups, but you're not seriously saying this is real, are you? The look in Dad's eyes are way too scary.
When I turned around, I could tell that Daniel's gaze could probably kill someone with just a look. Even though it wasn't directed at me, I felt like it might haunt me in my dreams that night. Maybe I should go get a blessing before I would go to bed.
Well then, since I've been asked, let me officially confirm that this is non-fiction from the start.
Hey, wait a second. Let me finish my side of the story.
Shut up, Steve.
At Daniel's deep voice, Steve immediately shrank back. I smiled with satisfaction and eagerly continued my story.
After I lent Steve $200,000, he started acting suspicious. He started coming home late, and on days off, he'd say he was going to work and leave. It was just like the classic signs of an affair. So, I decided to consult with Daniel.
Why didn't you say anything to me? This is about my son.
Wait, Charlotte, are you taking my side now?
When Charlotte immediately fell silent, I didn't feel particularly upset and returned to the topic at hand.
Daniel quickly introduced me to a private investigator he frequently works with. The investigator was really understanding and listened carefully to me, which reassured me a lot. Once the investigation started, the results were made clear so quickly it was almost surprising. Steve was guilty as charged.
After explaining everything in one breath, I saw Steve's face turned pale.
I understood your point, Mary. Now it's my turn to explain. In a trial, they hear both the plaintiff's and defendant's sides, right? I deserve a fair chance too.
Wait, did you want to take this to court? I'm sorry, I should have thought of that as your wife. If you're serious about it, I'll consult with a lawyer and get things arranged.
No, it's just a figure of speech. Don't you get it? You're so slow.
I get it perfectly. How come you can't see that I'm just messing around? You're such a fool.
Steve clenched his fists and started shaking. Yet, he didn't seem like he could escalate the situation any further with the pressure Daniel was applying. I gave Steve a sharp glare and snorted in amusement. Thanks to all the back and forth with the investigator and the lawyer, I've become a lot stronger. Now that it had come to this, I was ready to fight until the end.
Damn it. Look, I never wanted to cheat, but I couldn't help it. I've always wanted kids. You're infertile, so I felt like I had no choice. I was under so much pressure.
Steve put his hand to his chest and passionately tried to explain, but unfortunately, it only seemed to have an effect on Charlotte.
Steve, I see now. Mary, don't you feel any responsibility? You're the one who drove Steve into an affair.
Are you two guys blind, or are you just refusing to see the truth? If he really wanted kids, adoption would have been an option. More importantly, he should have talked things through with Mary first. Having an affair is never the solution.
Daniel shot back at Charlotte, his tone sharp, and she lowered her head again. I was so grateful to Daniel for stepping in to keep things on track. I made a note to thank him later.
Besides, it's hard to face the truth, but my son is worse than I imagined. Take a look at this.
Daniel took out a photo and placed it on the table. The moment Steve saw it, he stiffened. Charlotte looked at it, confused, but unable to make sense of it.
Who is this? This glamorous woman.
I almost laughed at how she said it. It's definitely a day for clearing my throat.
This is Steve's mistress. Charlotte, do you know who she is?
How should I know? I can't tell much from just one photo. I can see she's wearing luxury clothes.
Of course. She's the daughter of a company president. Charlotte, do you remember what Steve said earlier? He said that he had a way to pay back the $200,000. Well, this is his way.
Huh? I get that the affair is grounds for an alimony, but, Steve, are you really planning to make the mistress pay off the $200,000 you borrowed? Well, I guess she has money, but do you think she'll just pay it off as long as you ask her? Wait, you didn't plan to deceive the woman like you did to Mary, saying it was money for starting a business, did you?
When Charlotte gave Steve a confused look, he turned flushed again and shouted.
That's all just unfounded speculation. I would never deceive someone I care about for money.
You just keep digging yourself deeper every time you open your mouth.
Daniel sighed dramatically, and Steve shrank back, looking at me for confirmation of his father's true intentions. I shrugged as if to say, good grief.
I even contacted the mistress directly, since I have the photo. And guess what? Her name is Sarah, and she thought you were single. She was planning on getting married to you. When she found out you were married, she was really shocked.
That's impossible. She's just making up lies because she doesn't want to be accused.
Really? In that case, how about we go over exactly how you two guys got together? Sarah was shocked that she'd been lied to. So, she's been fully cooperating and she told me everything. I have all the details.
All the details.
Once again, Steve turned pale. He's the type of man who is always so restless.
We have plenty of photos from the investigator, so let's go through them one by one. All right, let's start with the time you were together in the car.
I get it. Just stop. Stop showing the photos. I'll apologize properly.
His ability to change his behavior so quickly was truly remarkable. He really is a whirlwind of a man. I could tell Daniel's patience was running out. This time, Steve would probably be trembling in fear.
Steve, you fool. Not only did you betray Mary, but you also went as far as to deceive another woman. What are you even thinking? You're lower than an animal at this point. I am completely on Mary's side. Don't think peace will come to you until you pay back every penny of the $220,000.
I will do as you say.
Steve quickly collapsed in a gesture of apology. The speed of collapsing could have made it into the Guinness Book of World Records. While it was meant to show sincerity, I felt no genuine remorse from him.
Daniel, it's my fault too, for not noticing what he was doing. Please, don't blame him anymore.
With that, Charlotte was about to collapse too. It almost felt like a scene from a play. I thought they should apologize to me, not to Daniel. Somehow, Daniel answered this unspoken question with precision.
You guys should apologize to Mary first, and don't you dare ignore the fact that, as her mother-in-law, you should take responsibility too.
Pardon? What do you mean?
Don't play dumb. In this day and age, is it normal for a wife to have children? Even I know that's an outdated way of thinking. If you're going to apologize to Mary, both of you should do it sincerely.
But that's just how things are supposed to be.
It seemed Charlotte hadn't expected to be called out for mistreating me, and she was quickly at a loss for words. It looked like Daniel was getting too worked up and had to sit down to catch his breath. That was understandable. Daniel was gearing up for round 2. Once he calmed down, he slowly took a set of documents from the table.
I told you to apologize to Mary, but you owe me an apology too. Do you know what this is about?
He tapped the documents on the table, clearly watching Charlotte's reaction. Charlotte was starting to sweat on her forehead.
I don't really understand.
It's clear that you two guys are parent and child. There's no way to save it.
Daniel turned the documents around, revealing evidence of Charlotte having an affair as well. Her face turned pale at the sight.
What? Mom's been having an affair too?
No one answered Steve's whispered question.
Charlotte, the investigator that Daniel introduced to me, the one he uses, has actually been investigating your affair.
You call Mary a parasite, but you're the real one. You've been using my money endlessly and never stopped demanding more. I'm fed up with your reckless spending. I've sworn not to give you any more money. Then, you went and started an affair, getting another man to pay for you. This immoral behavior. I can no longer ignore it.
Please, I'll apologize right now. I'll apologize as much as you want.
No more excuses. I won't live with those who have lost their sense of morality. I'm divorcing you and suing for alimony. I'm cutting ties with Steve right now, and I'll be watching both of you until every last cent is paid.
Steve and Charlotte both looked as if they had been struck by lightning. They kept apologizing to Daniel. Even so, his anger wasn't dying down.
Still don't get it? I told you, the one who you should apologize to first is Mary.
The two of them rushed towards me, straightened themselves up, and apologized.
I am truly sorry.
I'm sorry for what I have said.
At last, their apologies lifted the weight off my chest. I looked down at them and calmly said,
Steve, you said you wanted children, but I wanted children even more than you did. But I was infertile. There are people in this world who can't have children, even though they long for ones. I really wanted you to understand that.
Steve and Charlotte stood frozen, unable to say a word. Finally, as I turned on my heel and walked out of the room, I left them with my final words at them.
I'm divorcing you, Steve, and I will relentlessly pursue both your debt repayment and alimony. Be prepared.
As I stepped out of the new house, I squinted at the dazzling blue sky. After that, Daniel and I both got divorced successfully. As Daniel had declared, Steve and Charlotte were desperately working under strict supervision. When I had the chance to meet with Daniel again, I received a heartfelt apology from him regarding what his family had done to me. For me, his promise to make them face the consequences was enough.
By the way, how did you, a housewife, end up with $200,000?
He casually asked while drinking his coffee, and I answered with a smile.
Well, actually, I started a business with my friends back when I was single. Around the time I got married, it started getting traction and I was earning quite a bit. However, because Steve and Charlotte started treating me poorly, I missed the chance to tell anyone.
I see. Starting a business at a young age is a remarkable talent.
As it happened, all my friends were experts in business. One of them, in particular, was the daughter of the CEO of a well-known company. That was Sarah, actually.
What? That idiot's mistress was. Small world, huh?
I nodded enthusiastically in agreement with Daniel.
It was thanks to our friendship that I could contact the Sarah immediately after I learned the truth. In the midst of misfortune, it was a stroke of luck.
I see now. It feels like all the mysteries have been solved. Though our official ties have been severed, relationships aren't so easily broken. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask me.
Thank you.
Thus, my life took a new turn. A few years later, I was blessed with a wonderful new partner and remarried. Now, holding the child I conceived after fertility treatments, I'm leading a happy life.